I drew this 1,000 days ago. Well, at the time of writing this script, 1,001 days. And since then, I've studied a lot about art, slowly improving bit by bit. So, while I make this redraw and show you what 1,000 days of improvement looks like, I thought, why not explain the study methods I used and what I specifically think improved my art significantly versus what I would consider useless and was a waste of my time. When I started this project to improve my drawings, I had an overall method of study I took to heart, and this was based on a video I watched by Naoki Saito, a professional Japanese illustrator pretty well known for being behind some very cute Pokemon card art. I can't remember which video of his I specifically watched that day, but according to Saito, he recommends a model of study where you improve by taking a model artist, an artist whose art you really enjoy, and to do a thorough study in which you look at their art and imitate the specific ways the model artist uses specific elements of art, how they use colors, if they use thicker thin lines, specific proportions and patterns, and to try and replicate it in your own drawings. And through that, by analyzing specific things they use versus what they avoid in their art, you can see why their art looks so good, what makes their art so appealing to people. Because with a quick glance, even if you don't know much about art, you can absolutely tell if something looks good or not, but at the same time not know why something looks good. The why is the most important part, because in theory, if you can determine that why factor and put it into your art, you can compare and learn very quickly and efficiently. Another reason why I chose this method specifically is that it forced me to get out of my comfort zone to apply different techniques. In trying out different ways to draw, you understand what you gravitate towards, what you enjoy doing, and what you're actually good at. There were so many points where I finished a drawing and thought to myself, this works. This technique is so versatile, or this is why this looks good. And so many points where I thought, this is not for me. In forcing yourself to try out different things, you make so many more discoveries that can be used in your next works, so the amount of stuff you learn snowballs relatively quickly. So I made a list of my favorite artists, and beside each name, I wrote down what I enjoy about their art the most and what I wanted to learn. For example, I liked Ask, and what drew me to Ask's works were a number of things, but I wanted to take it one step at a time, so I focused on color. Then I looked at Liduk's works and really enjoyed the way skin is rendered, so I slowly learned that, and then I went down my list. This probably would have gone faster if I didn't want to document the progress. It took me 4 times as long to actually write all of the notes down and record and edit, but at the same time, I justified it to myself that by recording the process, I could also document and see the actual techniques I used instead of just having the finished product. Wouldn't I forget what techniques I specifically learned in each painting? This prophecy 100% came true, because if you asked me what I did in those early paintings, I would not be able to tell you firsthand. There's just so much information you learn by switching up and attempting new workflows in each painting. The rate at which I learned was so fast, but to retain the information, I really think you need to document the process, what you did and what you learned with each drawing, either by writing notes or actually recording your whole screen. Because if you use a time-lapse function, you don't have the information of what layer modes, what effects you tried and deleted, or what you're studying specifically. And it's very easy to forget the decisions you made 1,000 days ago. But by recording, it's very easy to see what you did in the past. This method is actually top tier. I learned so much more than before, because in searching for artists that inspire me, it very naturally increased my exposure to many different artists and many different types of art. When I think back to before I started this project, when I was in high school, only taking art for my electives, I distinctly liked anime and manga and all that, but I didn't really draw much. I mainly stuck to realism, and I didn't really improve because I didn't actively search for new sources of inspiration, and therefore I was very aimless. I didn't know what I enjoyed drawing, I didn't know what to aim for, so I just stuck with what I was comfortable with. But I also didn't improve much because I just didn't explore. And by increasing the amount of art and media you see, you can really start to expand your horizons, because you can see just how many different types of color palettes, compositions, types of rendering, and lighting people use in their drawings. Let's just say before this project, I followed less than maybe 300 artists. My list of artists I enjoy looking at and their art grew. And with that, my understanding of how art can all look so good while being so different also grew. Anyways, back to the list of artists I studied. The more I did this method of learning, the more I became aware of what I lacked, so the list got longer as I went. I started contemplating things I never thought of before, like the meaning of different compositions, how to draw or paint faster, what purpose different workflows have over others. Sometimes I took small breaks from my studies to focus on the areas I really lacked, like line art. The problem I had was motivation because I didn't like making things half-finished, so I tricked myself into learning line art by teaching myself animation because animation requires very precise lines. As a result, just by the amount of drawing I did while animating, my draftmanship and line work got so much better, and I even won $2,000 from an animation contest. Long story short, my motivation to get better at drawing grew even more. And now I'm here, 1,001 days later, after I truly started studying and consciously learning to draw. And here's to 1,001 days more. I hope you found this motivational for anything you're working on improving, and as always, thanks for watching. See ya!